Hi everyone, and welcome back to Dobby Books. So today is Sunday, August 4th. I made my library run yesterday. First, I want to cover what I am currently reading and what I have finished reading. So let's get that done. I know it's Jane Austen. It was Jane Austen July, and I started reading Mansfield Park, and I'm getting there. I'm right here. I'm on book 3 of Mansfield Park. Slowly but surely, I'm getting there. And I know it's continued on into August, yay, because I need the time. And I know there were other things that I chose to read along with Jane Austen July. I don't think I'm going to be able to do all of those. The semester starts in 3 weeks, and I can already feel the distraction being pulled from my focus as I anticipate getting ready for the semester, making sure I have all the books, and just knowing that my time is going to be completely taken up. Part of it is excitement because it's my final semester, and I had to take a leave of absence last semester, which is the semester I was supposed to graduate in. But Mom was in hospice and she needed me, and that was fine. I was absolutely fine with that. And part of it is that I'm taking all 5 of the classes that I needed in order to graduate. I'm taking all of them this semester because I really just want to finish and get that degree. So my brain is already anticipating the demands that are going to be made upon it. So I'm doing my best to enjoy the 3 weeks that I have off because I'm going to be really busy. Okay, so I was going to read something that talked about Jane Austen, or a book about Jane Austen. This is the Cambridge Introduction to Jane Austen. I was going to cover the part about Mansfield Park. I don't think I'm going to read this. I don't think I'll have time. And also to read a contemporary of Jane Austen, I was going to read A Woman of Color, a tale by Anonymous, but it was written around the time of Jane Austen. I don't think I'm going to cover this either, just to save time. So I'm putting these aside. But I will, of course, finish Mansfield Park. And then after that, I'm going to read Awesomely Austen, Mansfield Park. This is the one for children. So that I can do. I can get these 2 done. And I'm getting there. So progress is being made. What I finished reading was Crazy for God by Frank Schaeffer. And I covered some of it in the last video. He came from an evangelical Christian background. His father was a very well-known evangelical during the 80s and the 90s. Francis Schaeffer was his name. He was well-known during the time that I was in the evangelical movement, the 80s and the 90s. I know a lot about Francis Schaeffer. I'm familiar with his writings, his viewpoint. I'm not going to go through that now. What interested me, though, was Frank's particular journey, because he did step out of that world. And what I can say, it really did strike some chords there, because he was having some encounters with well-known names in the evangelical world. Falwell, Graham, Franklin Graham, Liberty University's, Jerry Falwell from Liberty University, and also 700 Club's Pat Robertson. I know all those names, very familiar with that. And just the way he describes certain encounters with them, especially Pat Robertson and Jerry Falwell. It was basically those one-on-one encounters that he had and the sort of backstage experience that he had. He saw 2 different people, or he saw an undercurrent that made him uncomfortable. And this is what triggered something for me. Because in my own journey in stepping out of evangelicalism, was not because I experienced anything like that. Mine was a different story. Mine, I don't know if I want to get into too many details, but I stepped out of evangelicalism for religious reasons. It's a whole different story. But after I was out, and I was able to look at it from the outside, is when I started to realize certain things. And it was a slow journey, but it sped up. It got faster after 2014. And there was a big, huge life experience that happened to me then that really started to take the scales off of my eyes. Yes, there is negative in that world. And right now, what we're dealing with, the divisiveness in our country, it's really, really pronounced. What was going on in the 80s and the 90s was the beginning of it, best I can say. And I think it's a uniquely American thing, because of the big names that were on TV and on the radio. There was also Dr. James Dobson, who he mentioned. Again, another name that I'm very familiar with. And his journey was, he saw that undercurrent, he saw the different face behind the scenes that other people didn't see. It sort of unsettled him, but he wasn't ready yet to step out. Just that unsettled feeling, and he pushed it away. Same thing on my end. And he wanted to pursue, he was a painter, and he also wanted to produce some films, which he ended up doing. He made small, he helped work with his father on the series How Should We Then Now Live. I always get that wrong. I'll put it up on the screen for you. And there was a video series on that, and he worked on that, and he enjoyed it. It was part of his natural talents that he had. He was not successful when he went to LA and tried to do some films then. He talks about the difficulties he was having then. Not a lot of money. And the slow process that it took for him to finally step outside of it. Crazy for God helped me to relive some of my own journey as I stepped out gradually from the evangelical world. But I do keep the good. And to this day, I'm still very comfortable going into a church and sitting in on a service. I'm very familiar with the hymns. I still love them. So I haven't become completely alienated. I just disagree with several things now. And I don't see it in the same way. I no longer feel the need for leadership to be the one that tells me what is good, what is bad. I don't. I've in my journey, I have come to have more trust in myself, with the understanding that our reasoning can sometimes be wrong, but we have the responsibility, therefore, to learn how to examine those beliefs, to check our sources, to approach these questions in life as best we can. We have that responsibility, and I think the problem that people might be feeling with this is that many who perhaps, and I have to be very careful because I know this is not just a blanket definition of everybody, but I think many who are very tied to our religious world place more trust in others, specifically leadership, than in ourselves. It's something we've had ingrained in us. And it's scary to contemplate stepping outside of that. There's a sense of stepping into literally a dangerous place for our soul. It's not easy. But I guess I can't think of anything else to say, but that's it. Crazy for God is a good story to read. I think those that who have some history in the evangelical Christian world are going to have a deeper understanding of this than those who are not. It's hard to see what others are experiencing when there's no familiarity for you. But it was a good story. It was a good introduction to Frank Schaeffer. I'm glad I read it. And yeah, I could recommend it to somebody else. that's all I've been reading. That's all I finished reading. I have no idea what I'm going to read next, but when I think of something, I'll tell you. Now, let me show you what I got at the library today. One, I want to start with this first. I had gotten the book The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich at my library. I found a nice paperback edition. I was very thrilled I found it for something that normally costs $35, $40. I paid $1, and it was in very good condition. I forgot that prior to that, I had placed a request with my library for the same book. Completely forgot I had done that. And I got a call yesterday morning saying, we got it. We're holding it for you. I thought, oh, wow. And I didn't say anything, but I brought my paperback edition and thought to myself, well, if the one they've set aside for me is in better condition than the one I have, I'll just make an exchange, which is what I did. What they ended up finding for me was a hardback edition of the same book. So I kept this one and I returned the paperback one that I got. So it's great. It's because it's such a thick book, I think a hardback does better over time. So this was replaced. The next book I found, I was looking for, oh, not yet. The next book I found is The Dead Secret by Wilkie Collins. And I knew this name, and I was trying to figure out why, and on the back, I was reminded. Dickens and Trollope admired and learned from Collins's complex mysteries. T.S. Eliot and Swinburne found them worthy of serious criticism. The modern detective and popular thriller remain in Collins's debt. The author of The Moonstone, The Woman in White, Armadale, and No Name, the brilliant exponent of labyrinthine plot and dramatic suspense, the first great detective novelist, first displayed the full range of his talent in The Dead Secret, 1857, one of his earliest and rarest. This was something that I had heard when I was, learning about the time during Charles Dickens, and you find out what authors inspired them and what other stories were being read at the time. And this name came up. I just couldn't make the connection until I read the information on the back. So I look forward to reading this. And the next one is by Virginia Woolf, A Room of One's Own. I had always intended to purchase this, but when I get there was basically what I thought. And this is a copy from Harcourt, but it's in such good condition. I mean, it's not even yellowed. The pages are not even yellow. There's no markings in here. So my guess, I love the cover. Isn't that interesting? That says so much in that picture. When you see the woman longingly looking out of the window, but look how far her chair is from that window. That tells you something right there. Why isn't it closer? How come she's not outside? So that really says a lot about the theme of this book. So good. This is something I'm going to add to my, I'm not going to put this under author, I'm going to put this under my modern fiction that I have, my chronological books. The next one I found, this is a classic from Alexis de Tocqueville, Democracy in America. Paperback, slightly yellowed, and I wanted to see if it had any markings. And I found some, but they're all in pencil. And they're very minimal, maybe something along the margin, a line along the margin, so I can erase those. But as a good intro to reading this, I'll read this. And if I really like the book or whatever, if I find a nicer copy or a newer copy, I can always replace it. So that was a good find, something to add to my classics collection. And finally, another book I found. Now this author wrote at the time of Jane Austen's time. And she had read this book, and it was along the theme of this book, which is Gothic, that she wrote Northanger Abbey. And this is a book by Horace Walpole, The Castle of Otranto. So that's really neat. I want to read this just to see what it was that, to better understand the influence of the Gothic for Northanger Abbey. So that's really neat. Then I had seen a really neat documentary on Umberto Eco, and I'll post the link for you below. So I decided, well, I need to read more of his books. The only one I know is The Name of the Rose. Could be wrong with that. I didn't know if there were any other translated books, novels by him, but I found one at the library. Same library. They have two sides, the basement side, where there's just everything is stacked and less organized. That's where I normally go. Then they have the organized side where everything's on the shelves and it looks very nice, just like the library upstairs. And that's where I found this. And it's Umberto Eco, Foucault's Pendulum. This is a really good story. I've heard a lot of good reviews on this, so this is going to be a really neat thing to read. I'm glad I just paid $1 for it, because I think when I'm done, I can just bring it back and they can just recycle it. It's a cool cover, though. Look at the colors that come up on it. Isn't that neat? So that's another one I got. And from eBay, I ended up getting a book. It arrived yesterday, the same day. What I'm doing, because there's a graduate school that I'm considering, St. John's College, and they have two campuses. One's in Annapolis, and the other one is in New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico. And they gave me a book list, and under history, then they have literature, and they have mathematics and natural science. They read the classics. This is what the degree would be on, the classics. And then philosophy and theology. Now, I have a lot of the literature, and I have a lot of the history. I have a lot of those, but what I don't have is philosophy. But I was planning on getting those. But what I'm not really the strongest at is math. So I really haven't focused on getting a lot of those books. I've got Euclid's Elements. That's about it. But I wanted to start looking at some of the math texts that they'll be using. They're using Physics by Aristotle, the Almagest by Ptolemy, Galileo's Dialogue on the Two Chief World Systems, Darwin's On the Origin of Species. I have that, but that's the natural science. Lobachevsky's The Theory of Parallels. That's it. So I wanted to start getting those books, to take a look at them. I don't know, just to maybe try to get a little bit of a head start since I have time. So I started ordering some books from eBay because I haven't really been able to find them in the classics section at the library. So I got René Descartes' Discourse on Method. That's one of the books on there. I guess I didn't mention it. And Hackett, who publishes these, they're wonderful. They're very affordable. I forgot how much this is, but these are very affordable books. They have their bibliography, they have their preface, then they have the actual text. So if you're looking at it here, this is a very involved text, but it's just a very affordable and, what's the word I want to use? Disposable resource. If you want to take notes in here and write some reminders and scribble on it, you know, if the marginalia, you're going to be really busy with that, you can go for it with this because you haven't spent a lot of money. So this is the first that I've gotten, well, one of the first of those math texts that I've gotten. And I'll be taking a look at it. Let's see how I do. And I also have a Kindle book that I want to show you. There's a series called Captivating History that I've covered in my other videos, which are a great way of studying various things, especially history. And they can summarize a lot of things for you. They can simplify it if you have children reading it. And what I wanted to start studying was the history of France. So I got Captivating History's Guide to History of France. And they do have them in hard copy as well. Look at this. I've put it in the text for lexic readers. And do you know what? I've been reading this with that font, and I'm reading it so fast. My reading speed is just really, really picking up. So I remember pausing after a moment thinking, what does that mean? I don't know. Maybe everybody would experience that by reading that font, or, you know, I don't know. But that kind of struck me. But I think that's it, everybody. I think that's it. Those are all the books that I got this weekend. I also posted something on an Illustrator. No, let's just skip that. That's it, everybody.